It is such a good feeling seeing your child head off to school really happy, looking forward to catching up with their friends, and just to see them eager to go to school. So great when you drop them off. But seeing them head off to school dreading the thought and anxious about a friendship that's starting to or broken down completely, and they're not sure how to handle it, can be gut-wrenching, concerning, and really upsetting all round, and kind of takes over the family situation at home after school. Parent educator Claire Orange is here to talk you through toxic relationships, how to identify them and what to do with them. But in these cases, what's really great is to hear from you, what you're going through, how you identified a relationship like that, and how you managed it, what you did, what you're doing right now. Because when we share that information, that can really help another family out in probably the same situation, a similar situation. 1300 222 720, that's the number to call and run it past Claire this afternoon. 1300 222 720 is the number to call. The text 0437 922 720. Claire, great to have you in the studio again. Thanks for coming back. Now, firstly, just setting up, how important is it to a child's development, just their growth, their learning, to have really good friendships?
It's really their central point of focus, children, as they're going through school. You know, all of our little people right from birth are hardwired for relationships. That's what they want, and that's what helps their brains to grow and flourish, and friendships are part of that. You know, once they step out of the love and the cocoon of the family, the next really important relationship is with those friends, and it's how they form their templates for the rest of their lives, really, how they're going to be treated, how they treat other people.
And some of these friendships, I mean, they can become almost like a family member. They're that strong, they're that close, and it feels almost that it can reach that level in some cases.
Yep. And, you know, especially if your children go to the same school or hang out with the same children in the same places, and those children become part of your home life as well and part of your dialogue. So when those friendships go terribly wrong and pear-shaped, it does impact the entire family.
So what is that knock-on effect in a situation like that?
I suppose if you think it from a psychological point of view, friendships, when you have an idea about a friendship, we think about people who are nice and kind, invested in us, who are trusting and trusted and loyal people. When you have problems within a friendship and that doesn't come off for you, it can really shake a child's perception and trust in people. So it can change the way the child works within their family unit, and it can certainly change the way that family works with that child and with the child who's at the root of the problems as well.
How do you identify that something's going wrong? As a parent, what do you start seeing or hearing from your child when they come back from school?
Well, this is going to depend on the age of the child. Certainly with your younger primary school age child, you're going to see it in behaviour. So it's going to look like overwhelm. They're going to be crotchety and grumpy. They're going to blow up at little things that normally they'd have the capacity to manage. They'd have some resilience around it. With your older primary school age children, again, you're probably going to notice a mood, but you're also going to have the language capability to start talking about it. So you'll hear that they're not happy about that relationship, and you might be surprised about that. High school children, it depends what you're going to do. So some parents will go, right, that's it, off social media, and they'll take it away to give the child a break, so they're fearful of that. So they'll become withdrawn. It might change the way they sleep, the way they eat. They might not want to go to school. You said that before. The child who's always out the door will be dragging their heels and not enjoying it anymore.
1300 222 720. Claire Orange, parent educator, is here to talk you through these toxic relationships that your child might be experiencing at school. Maybe some hints on how to identify it, and more importantly, what to do about it. 1300 222 720 to call through. Hi, Tony. I'm just going to try. Oh, there it is. Hi, Tony. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Is that better?
I've got you. Take it away.
Fantastic. At the start of the session, your presenter spoke about children being hardwired from birth for social relationships. What about children with autism who aren't hardwired for those social relationships? How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Tony. And in their very own way, those children are still hardwired to want to connect with people. So they'll do it in their own way, and it might not be the way that we think, like through eye contact, actively seeking it. But those children are still looking for connection. They're still looking for approval. It's difficult for them because there's so many other factors, sensory factors, developmental factors that could get in the way. But it doesn't take away from those children still want a friend. They still crave social acceptance because we are social beings. So even within autism, you will find that children are still hardwired to connect.
What about some of those characteristics in a friendship? I mean, we're talking about toxic relationships when things have really reached a point where probably something needs to be done at that stage. But there can be all sorts of different characteristics within those friendships. Can you talk us through some of the ones that you can clearly identify, like the ones that there's a real dependency on a friendship, or there's one that's more dominant, the most dominant in that friendship group?
Yeah, and it's going to depend on your child and on the child that they gravitate towards. So you're going to have some children who will go towards friendships where there's a glamour aspect to it, and that sort of child will pair up with a child who will help them raise their social status. Children look for all sorts of different things in friendships, dependent on their personality as well. As some children move into relationships that are really very deep and meaningful, and that's what they expect in return, that reciprocal, and they don't always get it, and sometimes that can become a repeated behaviour for a child. It's so individual what children look for in friendships. Those characteristics are dependent on the child, on the social set they find themselves in, and sometimes on that year cohort as well. You know, the schools will often say that they get a particular year group who are particularly explosive or corrosive, and if your child's in there, they might act outside themselves. Their characteristics might change as well.
ABC Radio Perth, it's 14 to 4, and parent educator Claire Orange in the studio talking through toxic relationships this afternoon. It'd be great to hear from you. This is the number to call.
Be part of the conversation. Call 1300 222 720.
Claire, what form can this toxic relationship take? Because sometimes it's really subtle, some of the things going on, and when your child comes to you and starts talking through it, it's like, you know, there's that, I feel like I'm being ignored, I'm not included, and sometimes that's really quite difficult just to put your finger on. So what forms does it take in the schoolyard?
Mm-hmm. All right, let's have a girl and boy conversation, because it's going to present differently in boys to the way it's going to present in girls. So girls, it tends to be a lot more about coming up in the hierarchy based on relationship, and it can be really subtle, as you said, but it can also be that, say, in girls, they'll tell a friend a secret, and that friend then tells everybody the secret and then says afterwards, oh, but I didn't mean to, I didn't know it was supposed to be a secret, which then leads your child or the child involved to go, is it actually happening? So there's almost this allowance of this behaviour, and also girls don't like to be assertive or aggressive. In boys' friendships, it's not as subtle as in girls' friendships. It's more based on competition and dominance patterns. That's what boys' friendships are based on. So it tends to be a bit more sort of sledgehammer in boys' friendships, and it will often come to a fairly physical end for boys, whereas girls will get into the catty, snipey, bitchy. Now, those are generalisations, but generally it will come across quite differently in the genders.
Oh, let's catch up with Max. Hi, Max. What's happening at your place?
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you.
I've got a daughter. She's in year 6. She's quite a confident young girl. However, she's in a class whereby there's a smaller number of girls compared to boys, and each time there needs to be pair work, it's an odd number of girls. The teacher just says simply, okay, pair up, girls. So these girls are all in their own little pairs and cliques. So she's always left out of this mix every single time, which I blame the teacher for not picking up on this and mixing things up randomly. And so she's at least coming home explaining this to us, albeit in tears. I'm just at a loss at how I can help her.
Oh, Max. And those are some of the things we were talking about before. It seems fairly subtle and fairly nothing to an adult. So often you'll hear either a parent or a teacher say, just don't worry about it. Go and sit next to or work with. And it's kind of minimalised into a nothing, whereas actually it is a very subtle form of bullying, really, that exclusion that happens. And in those structured learning tasks, of course, she looks even more isolated. So it's very difficult behaviour for your young girl. And if it was me as a parent, I'd certainly be making sure I put that in writing to the teacher to say that this is happening on a regular basis and it is impacting on your daughter. And, could you use a different system, even numbering the children 1, 2, 1, 2 and getting ones together and twos together, so that they have to mix it up. It's very difficult, Max.
Thank you for calling through, Max. You can do the same and put your situation to Claire Orange, the parenting expert in the studio for you this afternoon. 1300 222 720 to call through, and the text 0437 922 720. I guess Claire, Max has got us on the roll of what can we do as a parent to change the situation. So contacting the teacher, the school, and alerting them, is that one of the first steps to take?
Yeah, in primary school it is. I think, there's things that we have to point inwards at our children. So we've really got to help our children to manage themselves emotionally. So for the child who, let's take that situation. If she was to get teary and upset in class, she's already diminishing herself in that social hierarchy. So she's getting herself a bit of a name and a label. So we want the child to learn to self-manage. But as parents, we also want to be able to support our child. So role plays at home. So in that sort of a situation, being able to go up and say, it's not fair, I got left out last week. What can we do about it? Or next time, would I be able to pair up with someone? Could you call the pairs? So role playing, you get it into the psychological muscle of the child when you role play it, when they actually have to say the words as if now. And then as the parent taking the initiative to do that, contact the teacher and say, I know it's probably a very small thing in your very big week, but it's a very big thing in my daughter's week. What can we do?
1300 222 720. Chris has called through. Hi, Chris.
G'day, how are you?
Great, Chris. What's going on?
Thanks for your time. I just wanted some advice. I've got a couple of my kids moving schools for term 4. They're usually pretty sort of bubbly, active, happy kids, but they are a little bit anxious. So I was wondering if you had any advice for me to help the transition for them.
How old are they, Chris?
We've got year 4 and year 2.
Right, so you've got little people. So anticipation is always worse than action. Maybe doing things, I don't know if you're moving them far away from where you are, but if you can take them there and get them a visual idea, some of the things that would work for year 2 is providing almost like a visual diary for your child, like this is your classroom and this is where you'd hang your bag, and it almost becomes like a social story for your child. So they write the story of success. It's used often in sports coaching, so we should use it more with our children. And with your year 4, is finding ways to stay connected to friends would be important, because it's not just moving into the new, it's having to relinquish the old. So sometimes that resilience work is all around making sure that your year 4 knows that he or she can stay connected to the old friends, and then practicing maybe some really cool joining in questions, sharpening up on how to make a new friend. Again, great role plays for at home.
Thank you for that, Chris. 1300 222 720 to call through and put your question to Claire Orange, the parent educator in the studio this afternoon. It's 7 minutes to 4, news at 4 o'clock. And just in some breaking news, a report of a possible explosion in London. The BBC is reporting officials are investigating an incident on the District Line underground train at Parsons Green in southwest London, and I'll keep you across that throughout the afternoon. Just repeating, a report of a possible explosion in London. The BBC reporting officials are investigating an incident on the District Line underground train at Parsons Green in southwest London. Might be an update on that in about 6 minutes' time when we get to the news ABC News at 4 o'clock. In the meantime, parent educator Claire Orange in the studio. A few minutes left, so if you want to jump in now, do it. 1300 222 720. Focusing on toxic relationships your child might be experiencing at the moment, but you can ring up about any concern. 1300 222 720 to call through. 0437 922 720. Claire, it sounds like that role playing, which I don't think I've ever sort of sat down and done that. So it's something that I'm really going to take away from our chat today to do at home and to go through that, because it sounds like it's a really good way if you can get your child to say some of those words and those sentences out loud, like, I felt like I wasn't included today, or give them the strength or assertiveness almost to be able to stand up and defend themselves, put their case forward.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. And while we as adults don't like it, well, I'll speak for myself, I can't stand role play, children love it. Our kids absolutely love it. So getting a child to do it and being very, very specific with your feedback. So feeding back about their body language. So I would feed back to a child about maybe where their chin was. Like, put your chin up a bit. Yeah, that looks really great. What about your shoulders? Where are they? You can play people Play-Doh. That's another thing that you can always do. So you go in and be all crumpled up and get them to make you into a confident shape, and then to do some confident words. Speaking them out loud is so good for children.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. I like that. So, I mean, depending on the age, like the older ones, maybe just a point about that, because that's not really, as a parent, you can't just come in sort of 15, 16 years of age and sort of take control of the situation at that age. I still get in touch with the school, though, even for later years of high school?
Well, yes, because if you don't do it, it can accelerate and explode fairly rapidly. And then the school says, why didn't you let us know before that it was happening? And I suppose one of the biggest things for that age children, that 14 to 16, is, again, don't underplay it, because you as an adult don't think it's a really big thing. Don't write it off as a drama, a teen drama. Take it seriously. These are big things for our kids.
Really great to have you in the studio. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thanks,
Parent educator Claire Orange with you this afternoon, talking about those toxic relationships, how to identify them, and then some hints on what to do about it, how to manage it.